Okay, everyone, today you're going to be doing lesson 1.2b. It's a supplemental lesson to what we already covered in lesson 1.2b. So you'll see that you have a reference page that has some important units and some conversion equivalents. So for example, 60 seconds would be equivalent to 1 minute. 60 minutes is equivalent to 1 hour. And 24 hours is equivalent to 1 day. Then if you move here to the right, we know that 7 days is equivalent to 1 week. And then 52 weeks is equivalent to 1 year. 365 days is equivalent to a year. And 12 months is equivalent to a year. So these are all year equivalents. Here it's all week equivalents. And then here on the left we have second, minutes, and hour equivalents. So some definitions and examples. So a unit is a description of an amount. So units are an amount description. So some examples of units would be like time, seconds, minutes, hours, speed, okay, like miles per hour, yards per second, distance, like miles, kilometers, feet, yards, the number of items, the weight, the color of something, type of something, people, etc. So these are all units that are important to have in real life situations. Then we've talked about rates. Remember that a rate is a ratio that has two different units. With a rate, the denominator is not 1, okay? If it's 1, then we call it a unit rate. So here's an example of a rate, 60 miles per 3 hours. Miles is one type of unit, hours is a different type of unit. So you're comparing quantities with two different units in this ratio here, which are miles and hours. Okay, we've talked about a unit rate, which is a ratio that has two different units. In this case, the denominator is 1. So that's why we call it a unit rate. An example of a unit rate would be 20 miles per 1 hour. Okay, the units are miles and hours, and the denominator is 1. Okay, so for example, 20 miles per 1 hour means that you can travel 20 miles in 1 hour. So now turn to the other side of your paper. We're going to do some practice. So the other side of your paper is titled Notes. Okay, so the table below shows the distances that 4 students live from their elementary school and how long it takes them to ride their bike to school. So we know the distance to the school, and then the other side of the chart gives the time it takes to travel that distance. So number 1 is showing you that 1/2 as a fraction would be equivalent to 0.5 as a decimal. So using that knowledge, how would you write Davin's distance to school as a decimal? So Davin is traveling 2.5 miles. So 2.5, since you know 1/2 is 0.5, you would write this as 2.5. And then make sure to write your units because those are important as well. We talked about units earlier in the lesson. For number 2, it says, what is the rate as a fraction for each of these people? So Anne travels 4 miles in 30 minutes. So her rate would be 40 miles or 4 miles in 30 minutes. Okay, so you're just writing out the rate. Davin travels 2.5 miles, so 2.5 miles in 20 minutes. So that is the rate for both of these students. Number 3 is asking you, so number 3, it says, who has the longest travel time of all students? So if we look at the table for the time, who's going to have the longest travel time? So we have Anne, who travels 30 minutes, Barry travels 10 minutes, Chris travels an hour, and Davine travels 20 minutes. So remember that an hour is 60 minutes. So that means 60 minutes or an hour is much greater than everybody else's time. So we're going to say that Chris is the one who has the longest travel time. In number 4, it says how many minutes are in an hour? So if you recall from the reference page that 60 minutes is equivalent to 1 hour. So there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. So in question number 5, it says, find each student's traveling unit rate. Use the unit for 1 hour in minutes, and then scale up each fraction. So Anne travels 4 miles in 30 minutes. Since we want to know what is her miles per hour, we have to scale this ratio up. So if you recall, 60 minutes is equivalent to 1 hour. So we can figure out how many miles she travels in 60 minutes, and then we'll know how many miles she travels in 1 hour. So 30 times 2 is 60. So you multiply 4 times 2 and you're going to get 8. So that means that Anne is going to travel 8 miles in 1 hour. Okay, that is her miles per hour. And now if we look at Barry's time, so Barry travels 2 miles in 10 minutes. So the rate would be 2 miles in 10 minutes. And now we want to figure out how many miles he traveled in 60 minutes. So 10 times 6 is 60, so multiply 2 times 6 and we get 12 miles. So that means that Barry's going to travel 12 miles in 1 hour. Okay, then we're going to look at Chris. So Chris's time is 6 miles in 60 minutes. So this, for Chris, we already know it's 60 miles in 60 minutes. So this would be 6 miles in 1 hour. And then for Davine, it's 2.5 miles in 20 minutes. So 2.5 miles in 20 minutes. You just double check. So we want to know how many miles in 60 minutes. So 20 times 3 is 60. So 2.5 times 3, that would be 7.5 miles. So that means this would be 7.5 miles in 1 hour, since 60 minutes is equivalent to 1 hour. Okay, so for number 6, it says to list the order of the students from least to greatest travel time to school. So we want to figure out or use the unit rate to compare. So for this part, what you have to think is who, basically the least travel time would be who has the fastest rate. So who can travel more miles per hour. So if you notice, Barry can travel 12 miles per hour. That means he's the fastest to getting to school because it takes him the least amount of time, or he can travel more miles in 1 hour. So, so first we'd have Barry. Okay, then the next person would be Anne. Then Davine. And the person that would take the longest to get to school would be Chris, because he can travel 6 miles per hour. Excuse me. So now for homework, you're going to do the page that says student practice. You're going to complete that. And you're going to use the table for the speeds for different animals. You're going to write each of these speeds as a rate. So miles to minutes. Okay, so you're going to write the rates as a fraction for the hippopotamus and the fox. Then you're going to go through and find the unit rate. So figure out how many miles these animals can travel in 1 hour. And remember that 1 hour is 60 minutes. So that's why the hippopotamus here, they give you an example. It's 10 miles in 30 minutes. So you want to figure out how many miles the hippopotamus can travel in 60 minutes. And that would be equivalent to how many miles it can travel in 1 hour. Okay, so once you find the amount of miles it travels in 60 minutes, you can figure out it's going to be the same miles per hour. You're going to do the same thing for the cheetah. You're going to write the ratio or the rate. Then you're going to scale it up to 60 minutes. So all of these denominators here on the right side should read as 60 minutes because you want to figure out their rate per hour. Okay, so write the rate based on the table, then scale it up to 60, and that's going to give you the miles per hour. Then in number 4, you're going to list the order of the animal speed from fastest to slowest. So that's your homework for today.